Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we love talking about Innovate Memphis. We are joined by their Executive Director, Jessica Lotz. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good today. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing very well. Congratulations on the new role, being named Executive Director of Innovate Memphis. We've had the pleasure of working with Innovate Memphis and sharing the story of all the good you all are doing, you and your amazing team. And so it's going to be fun to get to know you better. Let's start by getting to know you better. So give us a little bit of just your backstory, especially with Memphis Shelby County Schools.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Bartlett and graduated from Bartlett High School because, of course, if you're a local, that's the important question to know is what high school did you graduate from? And after that, I went to Rhodes College in town. I just really loved the idea of having, kind of a small community, but being a part of a big city and one that I happen to love. After that, I went to Duke University and got a master's in public policy. At that point, you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, you got to watch the West Wing. That's required if you're a public policy person. So I was just thinking, I will, get to walk and talk very smartly with the blue folder and the West Wing of the White House and do all of this high impact stuff. And yeah, I did an internship in between my 2 years at Duke, and it was in DC for the Government Accountability Office, and they do really cool, interesting work. But I just realized very quickly that the federal scene was just not for me, and I realized that some of the things growing up that I just assumed were true about a lot of cities actually weren't. That there's some really special things about Memphis in terms of just the community, the ability to make impact quickly. That really just brought me back here. And so I had the joy of coming back to Memphis in the heart of the recession at the end of the 2000s. And, just was looking for any way to kind of plug in with the skill set that I learned through public policy to get involved here. And that brought me to work with the school system because at that same time, then Memphis City Schools had a 7-year, $90 million grant with the Gates Foundation. And then there was also a local contribution from many philanthropies here to try and improve teacher effectiveness. And so I got in as a project manager on that grant and just really learned a lot of great things about the school community, about the city. During that time. And eventually, I've been at the school system for almost 12 years before I came into this role. For the past 6 years, I've kind of worked my way up to be the director of our research and performance management team with the district. So we do data analytics and program evaluation, institutional research, and also data coaching and continuous improvement facilitation, which is one of my favorite things. And I think all of those things have definitely alignment to the kind of work that Innovate does. And so, having built, I think, a really incredible leadership team that is still with the school district doing that work and feeling like they could really take this on, with or without me, as much as I miss working with them. It just felt like a great time with this opportunity coming up to, take that skills and experience and work with, a really, really great different team and do a different type of impactful work here.
Yeah, and I think everything you're talking about, all those experiences, to your point, they parlay perfectly over at Innovate Memphis. When you talk about even working in government, there's that piece of it. There's the analytics, there's the continuous improvement. I mean, all of those things in a perfect way really align with Innovate Memphis. So what attracted you to the job at Innovate Memphis?
Yeah, it's an organization I've actually followed for a really long time, being a policy wonk and being somebody that really realized that she loved Memphis as well as just local work that you get to have a lot of influence and impact quickly on. If those listening don't know, this organization used to be part of the city government as the mayor's innovation delivery team. And then it has been its own independent nonprofit for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. So during that time, anytime Innovate came up in the news, I would just read about it and really enjoyed, hearing a lot of smart but very practical solutions and programs and strategies that came out of this organization. And that's something that I really love is I think Innovate has a really strong track record of delivering on implementation. So it's not a write strategy down on paper, hand it to somebody and say, good luck, hope you implement it. This team really focuses on the delivery aspects and will implement the things that we have designed and make sure that we have the end game of scalability and sustainability in sight. There's plenty of times that we have designed something so successfully that then city leaders will take it on within the Memphis city government, or nonprofits have spun off from some of the strategies and programs that we've done in the past. So I love that I think it's very sticky innovation that has become sustainable, has changed the way that people do things.
I look at Innovate Memphis. You mentioned the internal in terms of where it started inside city government, part of the Bloomberg Philanthropies, but then spinning out, I look at it as an outside group of very intelligent, smart people looking at ways to solve challenges in creative ways. And so looking at city challenges, but coming up with innovative solutions. That's how I look at Innovate Memphis, especially around specific challenges that the city has. And so when you talk about Innovate Memphis, how do you describe the work that Innovate Memphis does?
Yeah, I'll have to steal a term from Justin that I think if he did a TED Talk a year or two ago that was really great about this. But it is true. I very much believe that one of the big challenges that the civic sector and the public sector have is just having room to take risks and fail. And I can relate to that from being part of a government entity before, is that a lot of the time you have to deliver on the services that are already there. You don't have a lot of extra time and resources and wiggle room to stop that or pause it even a little bit to try something different. And especially if that thing fails, that's just not what constituents expect out of the government. And that's, for understandable reasons, because we want to use our tax dollars really well. But, the private sector doesn't do that. They have research and development, R&D types of functions, and they expect that some of the things that they try out will fail or take more time to really figure out before they're going to be good enough to get out in the public. So that's what this organization does. I think a really great example of that is working with the fire department and emergency medical services. They came to Innovate with a problem 4 or 5 years ago that they were noticing that a lot of 911 calls that the city was getting ended up being non-emergent calls. So things that, yes, somebody might have needed some medical attention or some resources or transportation. But they didn't need an ambulance ride. They did not need to go to the ER. And they really wanted to address that at the root of the problem. So Innovate did a lot of analysis and research, both looking at best practices elsewhere, but just looking at, what's going on with those types of calls, and figured out things like, there's some cases where you might have a caller that's calling 3 and 4 times a week. And so we really need to do more casework with them, figure out why it is that they're continuing to call this service. And a lot of the times it might be something like, this is the only way I can actually go get help for what I need, because maybe I don't have a good transportation option, or, I'm nervous about going to a physician and I don't have insurance. So if I call 911, I get, some attention and care, or maybe in some cases it's somebody that has, behavior mental health crisis that they really need support on. So through that process of just understanding what the underlying challenges were that were contributing to the calls, Innovate worked directly with emergency medical services to have a different type of routing system that through a series of questions and probes with the caller, they'd quickly figure out, is this really something that we need to send an ambulance for, or should we either refer them to some other types of resources? In many cases, we can bring physicians and nurses to you if transportation is the problem, or maybe you need some casework, some social work types of solutions there as well. And so by doing that, you're still making sure that you take care of the actual need. It's not just a get off of the line, because we're only going to accept things that are, true emergencies, but it's also getting that person the right care. It's less expensive for the patient that way, because ambulance rides and ER visits are very expensive. And it also keeps our emergency response a lot freer to handle those truly emergent calls that happen.
Innovate Memphis has 4 key priority areas: city innovation projects, reimagining the civic commons, transportation and mobility, civic data. Talk about those 4 and a new one with food security, how those are playing out, your vision looking forward for those key priority areas.
Yeah. So with city innovation, that's part of really how this nonprofit started after it moved away from being embedded in the city directly. So we have a grant with the city of Memphis every year to just try out some of these innovations like the example I just talked about. Right now, some of the big priorities that the city is having us work on is around blight mitigation and illegal dumping. And so we're going to test out some communication strategies and accountability tracking mechanisms for vacant lots, for example, or sites that have been known to have a lot of illegal dumping and blight. So, for example, if you're in a neighborhood where maybe there's somebody that's been doing a construction project for a really long time, and they've just had one of those big dumpsters out in front of the house forever, putting up QR codes. Sorry, it's a little early in the morning for me. QR codes where you can see quickly, is this builder, are they currently licensed and permitted to do this? Has that expired? Is this a code enforcement thing to report or not, and quickly get you there? And there's also an education opportunity to be able to say, if you're thinking about illegal dumping or you're just trying to find a proper place to do that, here's the resources and ways to do that legally. So that's one of the things going on with our city innovation work. Obviously, I'm very excited about the data world because that's a lot of my background. So right now, and for a long time, Innovate has had a Property Hub online. The main purpose of that has been to help CDCs in the area just know what the housing conditions and ownership and transfer ownership has been like for different properties in the neighborhoods that they're serving, and be able to make really smart decisions about where to invest or where we see repeat code violation issues that can be with particular property owners or just concentrated in geographic areas that we want to improve. So that exists, but we are actually building out a much more comprehensive civic data hub that will show a lot of different indicators of health, not just physical health, but community health in a variety of ways. So I'm very excited about getting that work off the ground. And right now we're just gathering use cases and user feedback about what we want to see, because I know one thing I have learned a lot about in my prior work is you don't want to just throw a ton of different resources in terms of data. The whole term around data rich, information poor is a real thing. You want to think about what problems are we solving, what kind of questions are we answering with the data that we have. So that's my goal there, is not just to spin out a ton of different massive amounts of data just to have it. We really want to be thoughtful about who we're partnering with, what they're going to use it for, so that it's just a lot more directly aligned to solving problems in the community. With Civic Commons, that's work that started, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say at this point. And that's really a big convening collaboration partnership with us. I know you've talked to Carol with River Parks and some other folks that have been involved with that. So the most recent thing that probably a lot of people here would be familiar with as far as Civic Commons is concerned is about the Fourth Bluff downtown, and really having a lot of good, what we call activation programming. So there's a concert series over the summer, Solon on the River, and some art activities there and other types of performance and collaboration activities. So the purpose with all of that work is just to continue to repurpose and really revitalize our public spaces with the idea of having lots of different people from all over the city and lots of different backgrounds come together. So we are continuing that on because we got that grant funding, I think, right before the pandemic. And so we just have the opportunity now to continue that a bit longer than we had originally planned, in a good way, to be part of the rebound from the pandemic. And you see a lot more people using public spaces these days, I think, than pre-COVID.
Absolutely.
And then lastly, I guess you asked about transportation and mobility. So with that, we actually just lost a really, really great civic leader there to a really great opportunity that she's going to have out of state in Seattle and Washington to do similar work, Sylvia Crum. And Sylvia has been over our commute options program. And with that, what we're really trying to do is work hand in hand with other civic leaders and entities in the city that are, responsible for different geographic areas, to just try to encourage people to consider different commute options. So not just single occupancy drives to work, consider carpooling, consider walking, biking, public transportation, but just giving people really practical resources and information about how to do that. So I know I've been publicly on the record already here in my new role saying that I want to bike to work because I live in Midtown and we're downtown, and there's a beautiful new paved bike lane on Peabody Avenue that I get to take down here. But what I need to, make sure that I know how to do with that is check my bike conditions every day so I don't get stranded, and know how to do simple repairs, and know how to, wear the right clothes, and, work with business attire so that I can still be professional at my job, but, not get things dirty and have the right kind of mobility I need on my bike to get here. So Commute Options gives you lots of great resources on how to do those things, and how to learn them, so that if you're feeling a little daunted or a little bit risk averse, it can help. And one thing that they started right before the pandemic that I really would love to restart is having scheduled days that are bike transit days. So if there's a group of us that want to come from Midtown to downtown to work, or other corners of the city, having a group that you can go with, because that's more fun for one thing. And if you're getting started and nervous like me about could I change a flat tire if I needed to, I would have a group of people to help me out with that.
Talk about food security.
Yeah, so that's one of our newest areas. So we just had a fellow start with us back in May. And right now we're really kind of in that research and design phase. So what she's doing is working very closely with Clean Memphis and some of our local food banks, and just starting to gather data right now, especially from constituents, because that human-centered design is a really important part of how Innovate approaches things, to just learn, what's successful right now about getting access to food, what might feel stigmatizing, or what might be challenges and barriers that are frustrating that could be resolved. And so we're just kind of gathering data, from those that we serve, to figure out what their hopes and dreams are for how to keep improving food security. I've got some ideas there, but I'm learning in this role, you can't just lead with the idea. You really have to find out what the problems and the root causes are first, and make sure that influences what you end up doing.
How can we help Innovate Memphis?
I think right now, one of my main early interests from a community standpoint is really just building understanding about what we do, because, it can sound like this very nebulous, highfalutin concept, but I think just knowing what kinds of programs are out there that have been really successful, that were based on really effective delivery, and promoting those. So there's things like Commute Options that are meant for everybody. It's not really tied to needing a specific service or having a specific need. It's, we could all get together and decide to have less single occupancy car transit as a group. I think things like that are just important to know about. Obviously, we've got a big year coming up with the city, and because of term limits, we know we'll have a new mayor. We'll have probably a lot of new council members. So just keeping the momentum up. On my side, I'm going to make sure that we do that, because we're delivering really well on these great strategies that we're implementing. But it also takes a community of advocates to say, we think that our government should continue to operate this way, and we really want to see innovation continue and have that be the brand of the city, because it works really well. So I say, anybody that you know in those types of roles that you would like to sing praises and continue to just highlight great work when it happens is another great way that I would definitely use support right now.
We'll wrap up with contact information. So website, social media, where do we go to learn more about Innovate Memphis?
Oh, we have a website that's very easy to remember. It's called innovatememphis.com. But we also have a Facebook page, Twitter account, LinkedIn account. And then I'm also on LinkedIn and becoming a much more frequent poster than I used to be. So you can just look for me under Jessica Lotz, and I will be there and ready to accept friend requests.
Well, Jessica, congratulations on the new role. Excited for the future ahead. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate it.